hearing you and Michael talk about, bro, it make them sound more like how C Major talk about, like Pat, like Juicy J being like, yo, come through, like do this idea type shit. Damn.
Yo, type beat. We live.
We in this.
We are live.
Oh.
The game is back.
Oh, this live.
The gang. Did I say the game? The gang is back.
The game.
Unapologetic fucking sound. The producers.
Hell yeah.
Got me, Kid Maestro. I make mad beats. C Major and Elo. Man, it's good to be back in this room with y'all, man.
Same. Likewise.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Shout out Metal Pens. Nobody gonna have a better pen than my shit. This shit cool as hell.
Shout out Metal.
Damn, Elo. You ain't got the laptop with the sound effects today, too?
Ah, shit.
What's going on, bro?
Hold on. Wait a minute. Gotta do the proper introduction for everybody. You know what I'm saying?
The other way.
Proper introduction.
A little more.
You know what I'm saying?
A little bit more.
A little bit more applause.
It looks about the same. Yeah. I mean, we're getting the camera right, y'all. Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
It's funny as you would probably still be in the shadows, of course.
Perfect. Got that, Elo? Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah, bro. Get on your job. Top of the morning. Shout out to Alan Billings, man.
Top of the morning. Hey, let's get this shit.
Yeah, bro. That's one of those like Drake moments where he just takes something everybody just say and feel, and just was the one smart enough to put it in a song like that. Yeah.
Hey, what these supposed to be on?
Yeah, man. What we talking about today, y'all?
Man, I think we got a couple of topics, so depends on what y'all want to hear first. We got producer workflow. You know what I mean? Like the holes and the things you love about your workflow, and then we also got the dichotomy of being a producer and then being a producer engineer, like choosing to be a producer and an engineer, or radically choosing to just be a producer and have nothing to do with engineering, and how you might get pushed in those directions. So I'll leave you three to choose which one we go to first.
Man, you just I'd love to just make note on the workflow part in general. Yeah, I know for me, like my workflow changes at least like once a year. Like, well, I would say my template changes at least once a year. I think because I'd be trying to switch up workflows. Like at one point, like I was trying to have, like my template used to have like a bunch of Omnisphere tracks. I try to like make my workflow based off what I've been doing. So I would set up like a bunch of Omnisphere tracks, all my contact gents, all ready to go. So the instrument was there, all I had to do was pull it up and like choose a preset and just start going. Then I started to, after like a year of that, I was just noticing that I was using less and less of those channels. So I would just have a bunch of empty channels taking up space. So I was like, I'm trying to go with a clean slate. But now, man, I've been really inspired by you, Neem. Like, particularly, like this whole shit. Like, I don't have like at the crib. I don't have like these keyboards and stuff set up. But I'm trying to simulate that, like being able to just turn it on and play. You know what I mean? And like discover something accidentally in that way. If I just wanted to practice, I could just pull it up and do that.
You know what I find is a good substitute? Like when I didn't have the Neve to run everything through, is just to keep an instance of Contact running in standalone always open. So every time you touch your keyboard, you're playing something. You You know, like you can just have it running behind everything, even if you don't have Ableton up. You can still have an instance of context, you know, with the piano up or a random synth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think too, like part of that for me is this, unfortunately, this one extra step is because I'm mostly, when I'm playing keys these days, mostly push centric. And when I'm playing the push, it like the way it's laid out to make it like make sense to play, it's like a control script in Ableton. So it only works when you have Ableton up. And so I would need to create, like go in, like do some really Bohms MIDI translator work to like recreate that script for when it's just in MIDI controller mode.
Yeah. Yeah, that's too much stuff for me, bro. that's I don't know, man. This is something where I know, just so y'all know, man, like, one of the cool things about, surrounding yourself with other producers is you get to learn from them what you like, and then you get to learn from them what you get to say. I ain't doing that, fam. And, with Kid, man, like, Kid is a quintessential scientific experimenter. You know what I'm saying? Like, he loves, like a part of his workflow is, like, messing around with some sounds for, a given amount of time and blah, blah, blah. That's not me at all. Like, I do like doing that, but I don't like doing that while I'm making a beat. Like, if I'm gonna mess around with sounds and textures, I'm just gonna do that. But when I'm actually sitting down to make a beat, I'm definitely not trying to scroll through sounds and be going through a deep library and then messing with an envelope and a filter and blah, blah, blah. And before I know it, I done spent 45 minutes to an hour. And, like, I ain't laid down no drums and that. Nah, I ain't trying to do all that. You know what I'm saying? But, like, it's cool because I have somebody on my team that does love to do that. And does love to take on, like, a complex approach to creation. That's just not for me though, man. Like that's Kid. It's funny that you mentioned that. Like, one of the reasons why I have all of this set up is so that it's just so that I don't have to think. And I find that the more you complicate things, the more potentially something isn't going to work the way it's supposed to work, and then all of a sudden I got to turn into an IT guy just to make a beat, and I'm not, that's why my machine is standalone at the end of the day. Like, I could do it with a computer and things can be all great, you know what I'm saying? But if something ever happens, I can literally just turn my MPC on and make a beat standalone. I don't need to hook up no USB. I ain't got to do no none of that stuff. I ain't got to do no safe mode. I ain't
Right.
nothing. You know what I'm saying?
And two, like, I feel like, as just my life just becomes more busy too, like that's just more and more valuable.
Yeah.
Like when you just don't have time to just sit there all the time and making a beat, like, becomes more of a, like, focused, like, finite activity in terms of the amount of time you have to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Absolutely.
you wanna leave that short session with something in hand.
Yep.
And that's why like, even now more than ever, like, the way you got, stuff set up to where, like, this keyboard right here is just like, there's nothing to record that, like, open, but it's just ready, you know what I mean, to play. I just really love that.
Yeah. What do you well, let me ask you, Maze, that, and Elo, feel free to hop in. What is it that you like about your setup, and then, like, what is it that you would change or that you feel like you're missing?
Man, I love everything about my setup except for the fact that it's mobile. I would love to have a stationary, like, this is where I create, so everywhere I go. The only bad thing about my setup is everywhere I go, I have to set it up. But if I had like, you know, space, like when I was back in my mom's crib, or even when I was at my house, where we were in, I didn't have everything set up because I still was moving around a lot, but I had my space easily set up to just like drop my shit down and connect and go, and even that was lit. But the dream, and me and Kid been talking about this for a minute, but the dream is to just have two of everything, a stationary joint, and then, you know, cause I'm gonna forever be moving around and traveling. I feel like that's just how I work. And so having two of everything would be the goal. But right now, I mean, I love my setup. Like when I'm hooked up and ready to go, I have and I use the same instruments, and my setup changes when I notice I've used the instrument 2, 3, you know, maybe 4 times, or a sound 2, 3, or 4 times. I use a lot of like sound effects and shit like that, and so I just got a sound effects program, and I just add to it. And then once I add some more shit, I'll just delete. If you're in MPC, I just delete the program and then throw in a new joint with all my sounds. I got my drum programs for different, you know, types of drums I already set up, different styles, and then I got I even got my instruments. I use the same like VSCs and same instruments. I noticed I just use the same joint, so I got them ready to go with the effects loaded on the channel and everything. And so all of my stuff is like in one folder as soon as I open my MPC, ready to go. And so whatever I'm vibing with, whether it's a sample or I'm starting with some drums or whatever, I just go through those programs and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna use this, I'm gonna use that, and then as I go, like, and this is what I'm trying to do more so now, is try to be a little bit more sporadic. So as I go and I find new stuff, I'm fucking with it, I do it. I notice I use this in about 2 or 3 beats straight. I add it to it, and then I find a new one, and I just add to it, and then I do want to do a like a setup kind of how you got me, where you're running into Pro Tools straight, but I still export everything out, and that's a part of my beat making process too, now, because the way MPC exports and the way we have sequences, I just copy sequences and then remove stuff or add stuff or change sections, and the way we got to export, I have to make sure everything is lined up together track by track. And so that's embedded in my process now, and it makes it a lot easier, and I figure out transitions that way. I figure out different A, B parts, verse, whatever, and it's just embedded in me now. It's like reading. And so
I tried to not do that, and then I had to go back to that. I tried to, man. I feel you. Elo, man, you use an abacus to make beats.
This man got a Fisher Price.
Right.
For sure. So, damn, stop, nigga. It would.
It might use that to make beats.
It would do the bud. Okay. Anywho, so, yeah, my workflow has changed quite a lot over the years. My original workflow was it was 2 SD cards, a 3DS, a Wii, and a TV. And I would like record something on the 3DS, switch the SD card, put it in the Wii, open up photos on the on the TV on the Wii, play over it, and then record over it on the 3DS joint. That's how I made beats and shit with my like Casio keyboard. And then finally got an iPad, and it just had GarageBand on it, and it was like, and I had like a little iDock joint, like interface joint where you can plug the phone or the iPad into, and like 2 monitors and a microphone, and like the MIDI keyboard. And I think during that time, even though like the setup was like fairly like basic, it was like so dope because it was like a space in my room that I could always go to where everything was set up. Like my iPad would always kind of be like hooked up to the joint. Like the keyboard would be on the table, the monitors would be on the table, and I just walk into that joint and just make, and that was definitely very, very, very fun. I think now I'm kind of in the same like space that you're in terms of like it being mobile and always having to hook up. Like because it's like way less room in my room. I bring my laptop like to different places, depending on like where I'm going to, and hooking up takes a while. Plus, I don't use the monitors anymore. I have to hook up my headphones anyways, and just different stuff like that. And a lot of times, I may make a beat where I'm not using like the guitar or the bass, like the actual gent. I just do stuff like on the computer. So the way that I make beats and stuff kind of changes depending on that. And I think elements to that I like. Like I like being able to like, if I I wake up and just feel like, okay, I just want to make this gent just on the laptop, just plug my headphones in and then it just be that. Or I feel like making it like a bigger thing. I think the downside to that is when I do want to make I don't get as much of a like motivation to make like gents that require more setting up, like playing like live instruments or recording something or with a microphone, or like getting on like plugging the MIDI keyboard and everything in, because that whole process becomes pretty daunting, like having to do that every time, especially like when you got like to do like other stuff. So like speed and stuff like that, like extra steps, like Neem said, and just different stuff like that can become like at least for me, like a hindrance to the creative process. But I think right now, currently, I have multiple workflows. So I have the workflow at home where I make my own like beats and all that stuff, kind of just by myself, and I set up and everything like that at like the house or wherever. And then there's another like a newer workflow that I'm like fleshing out with Shearer, who is my engineer, and like I'm not gonna lie, that workflow is fun as fuck. It's just a freedom in like not having to think about literally anything else but what is the next thing I want to add to this song.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's it. Like I don't have to put my brain onto how am I gonna get to the thing, how am I gonna like, okay, all right, now I gotta pull up an instrument track, and then I gotta choose the instrument I want to go. I want to go through Reason, pull it up as a VST, and I want to look through some sounds, comb through some sounds. Even like not even having to comb through the sounds myself, just being like, and we kind of created like a certain process, because like we are more in tune with how we both communicate, to where it can just be nonverbal. I just like, okay, I mess with this or I'm not mess with this, and then next thing you know, I hear another sound. And it's like, wow, like ideas are sparking. I made and it like past the music, I feel like for me it like affects like mood, mental health, different stuff like that. Cause last Friday I came in, like the whole day was kind of trash. I came in like mood was ultra low. I was feeling like shit, and I just went in there and I didn't even know what I was gonna do when we got to the studio. And I was just like, let's just plug the bass in. I plugged the bass in, started fucking around on the bass. Started playing around, looking for some different sounds, and literally all I had to do was just play and be like, I like this sound, I don't like that sound, or whatever, or let's try this, or let's try that, and then came up with a gent. Then I plugged up the piano and went through some sounds, and then like after that, just like doing that and layering, and like the entire night was just me playing or me thinking about what next thing I want to play, and that was just super, just yeah, that felt amazing. Like that whole process felt like very, very dope.
But
So
that's it.
I think
that's the goals, man.
Yeah.
that is like the setup
That's
for
the
me.
cheat code. That's that Swiss beat shit.
That is
Mm-hmm.
like so.
That's the thing I saw 20 years ago that made me feel like, yo, that's not fair, man. I remember that. I saw that quad, man. Charles Wilson, I think it was.
Charlie Wilson.
But yeah, I saw that, man. This guy, he had his own engineer, and just watching him like literally have to do nothing but the creative side of it. You don't even realize how freeing it is until you actually do it. I mean, you can just hear us talk about it, and then you just be like, "Oh, that sounds cool," but when you actually do it, it's like, what? Like you didn't realize how much the technicalities of things could limit your creative, experience, but it does.
So what's up with your workflow, bro?
Man, me, I was talking about with C Major was talking about how, I pretty much my journey through hardware. It all started with making sure I had 8 outs on whatever device I had. So when I had the MPC, a lot of people had the MPC with only stereo outs. I had the MPC 2000 XL with 8 outs on it. And that was so that way I could always go out of my MPC into Pro Tools in 8 tracks. So that would allow me to monitor my sounds live through Pro Tools, add effects while I'm making beats. Long before you could add reverb in a regular MPC 2000 XL. And how I thought when they introduced the MPC Renaissance and the MPC X and all these other devices and blah 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 blah, I thought that having the MPC software on the same computer was going to render that process useless, right? And so I might as well just make everything in the software, and with that I can add all the effects, compression, blah blah blah, whatever I want. But that is not the case. I'm gonna skip over my complaints and just say that that's not the case. And so I found myself, I went back to using the MPC and then just running tracks directly into Pro Tools. And I feel at home with that. It gives me a unique flexibility that you don't have living only in one world. I can be in both worlds. And I use I use Looper, or is it? Yeah, it's Looper. I use Looper, a virtual audio interface.
Loopback, my G's.
Loopback, my bad. Yeah, Loopback. And that's what I use to run directly out of MPC into Pro Tools, and I have as many tracks as I want to, thanks to Loopback. So it's pretty cool. I like doing that. And then I have the advantages of Pro Tools and the advantages of the MPC world. And I've been using that workflow for about the last maybe month or so. Maybe like 3 weeks, you know what I'm saying? And I'm really enjoying that one. If in terms of what I wish I had, 2 things. I wish I had another Prism Titan, just so that way I could have one interface completely dedicated to hardware inserts. So that way while I'm making a beat, I can have 4 stereo channels dedicated to running something through the Manley EQ or through the Manley compressor, all while I'm making a beat. So that would be crazy for me. Not having to wait till I get everything in Pro Tools and mix and blah blah, but while I'm making a beat, be this snare could use a hint of this Manley EQ, and I would love that. I find that I make better decisions when during the process of making beats, the sounds I'm using sound closest to how they're gonna end up sounding. So I don't like the whole I'll fix it in the mix stuff. I don't do that. I need to be able to hit play on the MPC and everything slap and you're wondering how does it sound that good already? That's my whole thing. I don't really do the lay down some decent drums. No, I get murderous drums from the gate. And that inspires me. I think that would be number 1. But then I think number 2, which is an idea to one day happen, which is essentially what Elo was talking about, which is where where I can just focus on the creative side of it and have an engineer do all the things that I do as an engineer while I'm making a beat. That's literally been a dream of mine for the last 15 years. And this is actually a perfect segue into the next topic, which was that I never planned to be an engineer. There's no part of me coming up in music where I was yo man, I would like to be an amazing engineer, and I need to learn how to notch out resonant frequencies and you know, and the difference between, you know, this optical compressor and this, you know, why doesn't this have a ratio on this device? Like I've never in my life said to myself like, this is what I want to study. You know what I'm saying? Or at least, you know, in the coming up, I never said that. I kind of just got sucked into that because that was the world I wanted to be in which, where I could find the people who I could get my beats to. And it was also a steady source of income. You know, unlike production at the time where production was spotty, like I might have some great sales and then I might not, you know, a month later. Whereas everybody's always recording, you know. Everybody's always needing something mixed. Everybody's always, you know, creating something, except for during a recession, which we're gonna skip over that as well. And so that's how I got, you know, it wasn't until the owner of Quad Studios asked me if I wanted to intern there. I had never thought about engineering. And so that's why, for me, the goal is to one day free myself from that necessary, from me having to do that. You know what I'm saying? Now, I'll say this, like, I'm super glad I learned what I learned. Like, it gave me my ability to make my sound, like unmistakably my sound. Like, I know my sound. I know people know my sound. You know, I have my own sound, and it's definitely given me the kind of identity that, if I can just be 100%, like, you know, I can charge a certain amount for my production because my production doesn't sound like yours or anybody else's. It sounds like me. People are gonna pay me not just for a dope beat, but because it sounds like how my shit sounds. They want that sound. So that's a part of my ability to sell my production. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so it's definitely paid off, and it's definitely an amazing skill set and tool to have in my belt. But that doesn't change that the 14-year-old in me that decided to take music this seriously, this wasn't on the list of goals. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm super the same way. Like, I didn't even understand like that was a thing until middle school. And one of my mentors, my early mentors, Elvis, Black Elvis, and I would send him shit. And at the time, he was working with a nigga here named Doramus, but he was working on like big records and shit like that. So I would send him shit just for like feedback and shit like that. And he would just tell me like similar to what you told me when I first got here, man. He's like, yeah, this shit hard, but you could really like, you know, tweak this, tweak that. And I was like, bro, I don't know what the fuck you talking about. Like, I just made the beat. Like, the drums was what the drums was. Like, when I got them, like, I ain't did nothing to them. And I don't even understand like what they is. Like, yeah, you need to look up like engineering, like people that engineer, like YouTube. I don't even think it was YouTube at the time. I think I had to go like get Pro Tools DVDs and shit like that.
Pro Tools DVDs.
Like the DVDs, bro. Like it wasn't even like a nigga. It wasn't even like a mixing engineer, bro. It was like an avid salesman on that motherfucker. Like, like, here's what you do.
Pro Tools DVD.
I still got them motherfuckers too, but yeah, I was super not into mixing. I hated that shit for years. Like I tried to get out of it. Like, if I wouldn't have met y'all niggas, like I wouldn't have. I probably would have at some point, but I was not trying to face the fact that I needed to conquer this to make great music. I was trying to figure out like, all right, bro, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna find somebody that's gonna tune it up for me, and we gonna I'm just gonna set a beat, and then I'll let them figure it out.
You know what I figured out though, man? Like, and I want to see how y'all respond to this, man. Like, the thing that like really like made me turn up with engineering was that, like, it was two things, but I think, you know, like that idea of like make it and then have somebody else like, you know, take it to the next level. You know what I'm saying? Like, for me, I recognized that like I couldn't compete with people who had that. Right? So I'm looking at that dude at Quad, and he's got that, and like he's before he's even done doing anything, the shit already sounds amazing because, you know, we tripping off of somebody just using Pro Tools. They're immediately running through SSLs and hardware the same way I'm talking about here. Like, I mean, as soon as it's programmed to the drum machine, like they're getting analog summing, and it just sounds amazing, you know. And I saw that like that knock factor mattered more than the creativity, like, you know, AKA like how it immediately felt mattered more than whatever crazy drum fill you did or whatever pattern you came up with. All of that stuff was cool, but what people wanted was for their ideas to sound great immediately.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was hard for me to compete with that, you know, and just like all independent artists, when you can't afford somebody to do that for you, you take it on yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it was that factor, and it was like, me personally, I just didn't want to look stupid. Like, I would be in rooms with people, and they would be talking about all this shit, and I would have no idea what the fuck they were talking about. And more, I would find myself in rooms. As soon as they started talking about this compressor, as soon as they started talking about this technique or this, I would have to like scoot back in my chair and like listen. Like I just hated this shit. I just felt dumb, and so that on top of like listening to, and I was in my fucking bedroom, so I wasn't even in, like, I didn't hear nobody right next, but I was hearing records on the radio, and I was like, bro, my shit would never sound like this. Like, that compared with like me just not trying to look like a fucking dumbass or say nothing stupid in a session, like,
Yeah.
really had me like, all right, bro, you gotta face this. Like,
Yeah, I know. Well, first off, shout out to everybody in the chat. Adam Billings, of course. Ty Buckets, Bill Street Bully. What's good, y'all? Thank y'all for joining in. Yeah, as far as me and engineering, I think like when I just think back to like my come up or just my journey, especially pre-college, it just feels like I was just like very into it, but like extremely out of the loop and out of the world of production. Like, I don't remember watching many YouTube videos and tutorials on stuff, and I'm not sure why, because that's totally something that I would be doing all the time, but it feels like I wasn't, which is why like I don't think I even knew like what engineering necessarily was in general as a role. I remember when I got to college that I started to really start to understand the differences between the roles in music production, and then start to dive into those things. But I do remember just being totally into music technology. Like I totally wanted to know what a mixing board was and how to use it and how it worked. Like, I remember begging my grandfather to like in detail show me how you get music from a microphone into the computer, because that process just didn't make sense. And I remember he kept saying, you got to use a converter box. I'm like, okay, what's a converter box? He was talking about an interface, but
That's that John. That's that illegal box at the top of the pole, dog. In the hood, somebody was knocking your door. I can set you up with HBO, my guy.
exactly. I was like, all right. But getting to college, and then like the people I met as I started to understand, is like, you know, just engineering was just part of what you did. Like, I started to realize that my beats didn't sound very good, you know, even though I was into them, you know, just like becoming quickly apparent as my network grew that there was like a clear difference in the quality of them joints, and it was like mixing was the key. And then, you know, meeting you mixed, my cousin Ivan, he has a studio and label back in Chicago, right before I moved here. He was a producer and instrumentalist. He mixed, like, it was just, I just felt like that's what you needed to do. The whole concept of like there being a separate engineer like came later than you mixing your own stuff, like being the engineer. Like engineering was, I don't know, I just didn't imagine like making a beat and then sending it off. Once I learned about what engineering was, it was just something you had to learn to do. And then I just became excited about learning that. And then like, I also don't really come from, at least when it comes to making music, I don't come from an experience of like team dynamics in that area. I was always just making beats alone by myself. You know, I wasn't working with very many artists or other producers or, you know, instrumentalists who was, you know, playing stuff on beats. Like I didn't make beats with people. So I think that just developed a level of like, I don't know, control or just the need to like be end to end with the process that I've had to like start to unlearn. So that started with like making beats with you guys and just understanding like, oh, you know, this is a team effort, but also like that extends into the idea of giving my beat to someone else to mix and make sound better. I think there's like a bit of a, I don't know, there's some sort of hesitance naturally to just give that away and entrust it to somebody else. So even learning that like, yeah, you know, Jimmy Douglas was mixing all the Timbaland stuff, I was still like, yeah, but I'm gonna do my own stuff. You know what I mean? And it wasn't just till like more recently and now that I'm like, yeah, it's good to have a 40 to mix these, you know, these junts.
Yep. Yeah.
Especially when you start getting into songs. Like,
Right.
That's real.
you want to create a bunch of songs and not just beats. Like, my template for making beats sets me up to where I don't have to mix much. But as far as songs, I would definitely love to make as many songs as I can make beats. and I would have no problem if I could trust the person sending them off. And moving on to the next one.
And then like, well, yeah, y'all probably don't, but I definitely have like this, and I don't know if this is like a plus or a flaw, but I definitely just have this like internal like competitive thing where I just want to get better. Like I want to be good at it. You know what I'm saying? And so like that alone, like I definitely would be, if I'm presented with a choice to have somebody else mix something versus me, like, you know, it becomes more obvious the better that other mixer is than I am. But there's always like a part of it is like, nah, I want to mix it. I want to, you know, see where I can go because, you know, I want to get better at it.
Yeah. I feel that 1,000,000,000,000,000%, bro. I feel that, man. Elo, like I know you definitely done dropped some tracks in the chat where you arranged and mixed them, man. How do you feel about the process?
It is definitely like the interesting journey with in relationship with me and mixing. Like I started off, I didn't necessarily, like when I first was making beats, like when I first got like the GarageBand and the iPad and stuff, I definitely, well, what my idea of mixing was generally what mixing was, and like, but my idea was just like, okay, I didn't have a name for it, like I didn't know it really exists. I was just like, okay, you make a beat, okay, I want my beat to sound like this, I want this instrument to sound like that, and I was like, what tools are in here, like what, I don't know what any of this stuff is. EQ, what's that? Okay, whatever. Like I didn't even know what the full word for it was. I was like, okay, you got these dots and you got these lines and you move the dot and it make the sound different. Okay, bet. I'm gonna mess around with that shit and see. Okay. And I definitely created a system with the tools that I had in GarageBand. The beats didn't sound the best in terms of audio quality and mixing wise. But that's basically what I thought mixing was to be. Then I got the laptop. It was a lot more mixing tools, and I had a general idea of what mixing was still, but I still didn't know that whatever I was doing was considered that, or that there was a name for it. And I was just trying to figure out, like, why do my beats like not sound exactly like how I want them to sound? Like something is off about them, like something is wrong. How do I utilize? And then I didn't have a lot of like drums, and there was like this one specific kick that if I tweaked it just enough, it'll sound like a whole different like type of kick, the type of kick that I wanted to have like more punch. But figuring out how to sit it well with everything else, because I had to do all this extra stuff with it, like figuring out what is too much, what is too little. Because I'll have like, for like the kick drum, it was very much just like muffled low end stuff, and I'll like, and it didn't have a lot of punch or a lot of energy to it, and I would just take the EQ and have a bass jump and just fucking put it all the way to the top and do a bunch of other crazy shit to it and overdrive and all that stuff. But like, yeah, and then I got into, you know what I'm saying, internship with Unapologetic. Specifically
support.
Man. That was the word.
I still didn't have any idea what mixing or engineering was, but I was like, I mean, I guess it'll help me get better at producing, so let's just hop into this journey as a producer engineer. And that was also definitely a journey. Man, I was sliding out a lot, and it was a whole entire other world that I learned how important it is to creating your sound and to making your sound and your beats or whatever you're creating sound good. But it was also like, I don't know if this is necessarily for your boy. And it was like, and so it kind of like I kind of grown and niched myself closer to being a producer artist as opposed to being a producer engineer, which does two things. It one allows me to, like, you know, put my brain energy towards learning new things, but the new things are more about like being an artist in general and the relationship towards the artistry and how you create as a producer, for other people or for yourself as an artist, and also building a relationship with the producer and engineer aspect. But also, it's like, it's more of a, I guess, mental freedom where I can, it allows me to pace myself with the mixing side of things, where I can learn some mixing stuff and implement it as I like, in a more like organic way, kind of like how I did when I first was making beats ever. Cause
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, I was just saying, cause like, you know, like I just apply it for different situations. Cause just the way I feel like the way that I learn certain things are just different, and so.
Yeah, I want to say two things, man. You know, Elo, it's funny when you become a parent, you realize, like, you want your kids to know, to appreciate, but you know they'll never appreciate as much as you do, because if you do a lot for them, they'll never be at a level of poverty you were at to where they would super appreciate, right? You know, Elo, you joined the team with 3 producer, engineers, instrumentalists, and every once in a while, Mono Neon, you know, flying into the studio. So you're very blessed. And you joined that team at the age of 16, 17 years old. So
Sure.
you're very blessed in that you never felt the pressure to have to be anything.
Very, very true. Yes.
You know, you could kind of be exactly what you wanted to be. And I know, I mean, I can definitely speak for myself and probably a C major too. Like, you know, a lot of what we are is because we felt like we had to be that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, as soon as we got around other people who had specialized skills, that's when we got a chance to say, all right, I don't do this anymore because somebody else does that, you know. Like, I used to rap, you know what I'm saying? And then I found Midas, and then I stopped rapping. You know what I'm saying? Because I had a rapper. I didn't need to rap to make a song, you know what I'm saying? And so that's a beautiful thing. But I definitely want to shout out all the people in the chat that I can't read from here.
Yeah,
but I feel like they might have some questions and concerns and comments.
I do want to say this too, like to what you said, man. Like we definitely had to, and I don't. The beauty of mixing is it's not escapable. Like Elo, even what you're saying, moving more towards a producer artist, you're still gonna have to fuck with the engineering work. Like you're gonna have to like.
Well, I mean, okay, that is 1,000,000% true, but I think like you have to start from like the recording part. Like you got to do that first. Like you got to be able to like sit in a studio, you know, and record yourself and get it to sound, you know, a certain way. I'm not saying getting it to sound as good as I or C Mage or Kid, you know what I'm saying? But like, you know, you got to be able to do that. And you know, eventually you're gonna be making music with other people. Mm-hmm. You know, you're gonna have to be able to hop in and just hit record. But I will say this though, man. Like, I'm definitely not trying to, you know, not give you the props you deserve, man. Like, I'll say this. Like, even during the Unapologetic Youth Scholarship stuff, man. You know, when you were playing stuff, one of the first things that I noticed was like, man, this definitely got the knock factor in it. You know what I'm saying? And I remember us having a back and forth, which I didn't think you understood at the time. Maybe you understand it now. But I remember saying like, yo, man, like your drums knocked in that one joint, you know what I'm saying? And you was just like, yeah, well, you know, I don't get too much credit for that because those are the only drums that I got, you know what I'm saying? And I remember thinking in my head, he's not going to get that a part of this is choosing the right sound. So even if those are the only ones you got, you chose them, you know what I'm saying? Or you chose to use them, you chose not to use them. You chose to either pitch them, the thing that you realize about engineering and you realize about our song arrangement is that it is about having great sounds, but it's also beyond having great sounds. You can have average sounds, but if you know how to program them, you can make average sound amazing. Yep. That's something that I learned, you know, in a variety of ways, but I most recently saw it by listening to the Pro Tools session for Michael Jackson's Thriller. Right? If you go back and you just listen to those stems, nothing in those stems sounds great. But the producer's ability to arrange and play sounds makes the whole thing sound like amazing. And I was trying to give you the props you deserve because I've seen a whole bunch of 16-year-olds who make beats, and none of them had the knock factor yours had. You're not gonna dodge getting these props, motherfucker. I'm trying to tell you, your shit sounds good, and it's for a reason. And it's because you have a good ear, number one, and that's something that's hard. I don't think you can teach. I think you just gotta come up on it. You know what I'm saying? And then even more importantly, and this is where your gift is. Your idea for rhythm and arrangement makes up for your engineer ear. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So you know how to program drums to sound good, even if you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about with compression and all that shit. You know what I'm saying? Because you're a drummer. You know, and I think you know how to apply that. And I want to make sure that I clear that because I've met a lot of musicians who make trash beats, you know what I'm saying? But they're amazing musicians. And there is a skill that is applying your musicality to production. That's probably the most understated thing in like maybe the music industry history is the difference between a good musician and a good producer and how those are not the same thing. In fact, I would dare say most of the time, they don't even dwell in the same orbit. Yeah. Most good musicians I know are not good producers. They're good musicians. And it takes somebody special to be both. And that's where you live.
That is an interesting thing. Thanks, by the way.
Mhm.
That is an interesting thing you said about like you and C Major, like about not being able to escape that aspect, because I remember when you first like asked me like, do you know what sidechain compression was?
I
And
was
had
just about to say
no
that. But you were
fucking
doing
idea.
it though. But you were doing it.
I was doing it because
Yeah.
like when I had like GarageBand on like the iPad, sidechain compression didn't exist, so I had no idea.
You was just
anything
cranking the
about
fuck out of the compressor and it was
So-
knocking shit out the way.
I would crank shit the fuck out of the compressor, which you couldn't put on individual tracks. It would be a compressor for the entire jump. So
Oh, yeah, well, there you
I,
go.
Mhm.
I
That's
accidentally,
a poor man's side.
right, I accidentally
He was
had,
doing it
like,
and then
Turn up the kick and that shit's
Yup.
squad.
I accidentally had like the knowledge effect
Mhm.
in terms of like everything being compressed, and then when I got like, but at the point like when I got like the new like Logic, and like the like all the stuff I have now, it really is inescapable because well before I got that I would also like to clean stuff up a little bit more. I would like everything else I would have to automate the volume and make that jump like go out every time the kick would hit. But
That's what she said. I only did that to segue because we got a question in this John. I just wanted to make sure we get to it. Todd Bucket said, "So is it best to use a program that the engineer has?"
honestly,
Nah.
cause I like so specifically the beat that I made with Shira, and a lot of beats that I make with Shira, we end up recording just my own stuff in the Pro Tools, but we'll use like Reason, and I don't even use Reason. We just go through different sounds, and then I'll go home and like I'll be on Logic. I'll put the joint up in Logic or whatever, and then I have like my own like strings. I have like LA strings and stuff now, and I just put that in there myself, and then I'll just send the strings over or whatever. But we use two completely different like softwares to make the beats. It's just mainly about the sounds and stuff,
Yeah.
and how good is any person who's using the thing like good at it. So like she knows how to use Pro Tools and Reason a lot better than me, and I guess like vice versa with like Logic and stuff. But if I'm in studio with her and like that's the gent, as long as like whoever is using it is proficient or knows what they're doing with their equipment, that's pretty much the important thing.
Yeah, I think something that you did like you have to prioritize is that you have to define like what is a producer, right? Like there's no one with more responsibility to a song than the producer. No one. That's why you're called the producer, right? Is that it's your responsibility to produce the song. The buck stops with you. If the engineer messes up, it's the engineer's fault and it's your fault. You know what I'm saying? Because you're the person who's supposed to see it from A to Z. So you can either mix it yourself or you can get somebody else to mix it, but it's your responsibility to find the right person to mix it. And so I bring all this up in the context of this question because you got to use whatever's going to get you to where you need to be to produce this song, because you have the heaviest responsibility. You're the producer. And the engineer should know how to convert what you've made to their world. That's their responsibility. If they don't know how to do that, they're not an engineer. They just bought an interface and they have a SoundCloud page. That's it. So your responsibility is to make sure you have your setup to get the most out of you and your creative mind for you and the artist. And you need to surround yourself with people who can do the same for their world, like an engineer who uniquely knows how to use Pro Tools in a way you've never even read about. If the person you're working with doesn't know the platform better than you, find somebody else, or do it yourself. But I'm not gonna hire somebody to mix for me that don't know Pro Tools as well as me. That's a super red flag. To be quite honest, I'm not gonna hire if they know it as well as me. You got to know it better than me, And I know Pro Tools. So.
Right. Well, we have 3 minutes left. Any final questions from the chat? Anything you want to ask or know about or say? The floor is open. I know that just sounds good too because I got all that Bill Street Billy. Shout out to you giving props on this this random echo we be having on this track.
Shout
I don't
out.
even know how this junk got here in the first place.
I think I put it there.
This
To
junk,
be honest with it.
Damn, that's the OG echo.
Damn.
That's literally echo, not delay. But
this D-verb.
oh yeah,
D-verb.
D-verb. Yeah, that
Shout
was
out
trash back in
D-verb.
the day, fam. I know you gonna say what we used to call that, bro. It's all good.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Look, big ups to Unapologetic. LOL. The Jeopardy. Oh, the sound you just played. Okay, I was like, bro, I don't get this.
It's time for you to end the session, bro. Yeah.
Right. Look, I've had the Memphis flyer of the Hip Hop Renaissance cover on my wall. That's what's up.
Seriously.
Who got that?
Mr. Todd Buckets.
Okay, that's what's up, man. Shout out Ty Bucket. Salute, bro.
Yeah.
With the buckets.
He said it's yellowing. Yeah, bro, you gotta get that joint in the case, in the frame, bro.
Serious.
Where AWM at? I think you mean Offham? AWFM?
He's actually in the next room,
Where
bro.
I'm at?
Yeah,
Offham's in his office.
yeah.
Office.
He's actually over there. He should be coming through any second. Yo,
Say what's up to everybody on Tight Beat, especially Ty Buckets. Give a shout out to Ty Buckets.
ASAP Top
Yo.
beat.
Todd Buckets, what's up? What's going on, man? Oh, I need a mic.
Nah, man.
Nah, you don't need one.
Okay.
I'll just.
Yeah, my nigga. What's going on? It's a weirdo from Memphis, East Memphis in the building.
East Memphis, I ain't Memphis. No.
It's trying to look like some decent people in here. Yo, what up, everybody? Stay alive, and make art, and do shit. Stay alive, you know.
For sure.
I like that.
And with that, y'all, that concludes this week of Tight Beat. Thank y'all. We will see y'all next week for the next episode. And be safe.